Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever timeline or alternate reality you currently exist in. Welcome to Transdimensional Realities, where we delve into the stranger aspects of our perceived existence. I'm your host, Melissa Lee, here on the Paranormal UK radio network. And we have a slightly different show tonight. We're talking with our guest, Dami Roelse, who is a certified life coach and author, born and raised in Holland. Dami has traveled the world extensively, lived on different continents, and studied with different spiritual teachers. She's also learned to use her travel as inspiration for living. She's used her passion for long distance hiking and backpacking as a means to deepen her connection with nature and the universe. Her inner spiritual journey has evolved right along with her outer journey. Now, she has a new book that came out in April. It's called Body and Grace, A Woman's Hike to Wholeness on the Pacific Crest Trail. So please welcome Dami Roelse to the program. How are you, Dami?
Hi, glad to be here and have a little talk with you today.
Yes, yes. Well, wanted to talk to you about your new book that just came out, your third, and also about your life journey, what led you to write the books, and your spiritual journey that you've been on. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to this point.
Okay, well, I'm 79 now, so been a long life that led me here. But the last book that I wrote, Body and Grace, A Woman's Hike to Wholeness on the Pacific Crest Trail, is a recount, in a way, of my section hiking. I did it in sections, the whole Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada. And but as I started doing that, which I didn't plan to do at all in one, I wasn't planning on doing the whole thing at all, but I found out that, I started this a couple years after my husband had passed away, that there was so much unresolved grief still, and that being out in nature, often solo, on the trail would let come up, parts of grief that hadn't had a chance to surface. And so I realized that the section after section, in different ways it would come up, and then eventually it didn't come up anymore. So it really felt like by doing that, I cleared out, the grief over having lost him. I was a great friend and a great partner, and all of a sudden you have to, well, not all of a sudden, it was a slow process, but you have to do life alone. And to fully embrace that, I found that the trail offered me, in a way, even though it was hard, it offered me comfort and a sense of belonging that I had lost by losing him. So that's what that book came out of. And you asked about my spiritual journey. I mean, I've been on, from the time I was 19 and woke up to what is this all about. I've been on a quest to find out, what is life about, and and so I've been a meditator. I've done lots and lots of retreats. I have a guru in India, no longer alive, but so I've explored the alternate ways for our Westerners of spirituality, because I was raised with Christianity and it just didn't satisfy. And I had a father who was an atheist, and that didn't satisfy either. So I knew there was something else, the beyond. And by being on the trail, I started experiencing the beyond, the other world, more so than at any other time in my life. So that drew me back to doing it. That's why I ended up doing the whole trail. So I hope that sort of explains to you a little bit.
Sure, sure. I mean, I under as I was telling you before we were recording, my spouse died 3.5 years ago. So it's, it's been a journey. I'm doing good these days though, but grief is a really funny thing, and people deal with it in different ways.
Yes.
A lot of it depending on the relationship, and you sometimes feel things that you never realized you were going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the different stages. The one thing that I'm interested in is the fact that when you're out on the trail, you are out in nature. And
Right.
nature is the most healing force out there for us, whether it's grief, whether we're troubled, whether we just need to relax.
Yeah.
I can't say enough for people about getting out into nature, even if it's just a local park. If you
Right.
can't get out in the
Yeah.
mountains or somewhere, just find
Yeah.
somewhere to get out of the hustle and bustle to
Yeah.
gather your thoughts.
Yes. And I I knew that, like you said, when you're troubled. When I was younger, I would, ride my bike to the beach and walk it off, as we would say.
Mhm.
Clear your head. And I think it wasn't just being in nature, but for me, I'm a kinetic person. Walking, breathing, and letting whatever feelings and thoughts are there, they will process, because movement in your body will do that. Your brain eventually becomes empty,
Mhm.
and so that may not be the case for everybody. Some people really need to process by talking to other people and doing it in that kind of a personal way. For me, I didn't need to talk about it with other people. I loved feeling my heart expand or my being expand when I was in nature, which it does for most people, because especially in this country, I mean, nature is wild and amazing and beautiful and expansive. So it really transports you. It puts you on another level of like, wow, what a place, what an earth, what a universe I live in. And so that uh, that was really the key for continuing my long distance hiking. And then I also, I learned the mechanics of it in the sense of, what really happens when you hike day in, day out. Um, and I learned that it was like I started comparing it to my sitting meditation retreats, which sometimes were 10 days, sometimes 20 days. Um, there's a process that happens. All your discomforts come up in the beginning, and then you start letting go of them, and then eventually you get to a place where you make your peace with whatever's going on. And that's exactly what happened in the mountains as I walked too. I could just sort of say, oh, now I'm on day 3, or now I'm on day 10, or it was a similar experience. So I call it especially hiking alone, which I did quite a bit. I call it walking meditation. And I think people may experience that when they're in nature. Often people talk a lot when they're with other people, so they don't get to experience it. And I think the real key is to let nature talk to you rather than you talking to somebody else. Yeah.
About listening,
Yes. Yes.
listening, even if you're not hearing words, just tuning in and listening to what's around you. So a lot of people don't appreciate that. They don't hear the
Well,
birds, they don't hear the wind rustling in the trees, or even animal calls in the distance. It's just, it heals the soul.
but you have to have a certain comfort with your soul. I think for a lot of people, they uh, hearing what's going on in their heads, it's scary. So they'd rather avoid it.
Yeah. I get busy brain. I can't shut it off.
No, it isn't that my brain is less busy or more busy than other people's. Most of us have very busy brains. Um, there's a lot of stimuli that we get all day, uh, outside, inside, wherever we are, and the brain reacts to that. So to get a quiet brain, I learned, because I wasn't just on the Pacific Crest Trail. At high altitude, you have less oxygen, and so your brain calms down. Because that's just sort of physiological fact. You can't think as fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you get to experience these sort of empty spaces. And when that empty space is in nature, then you start to feel the the connection that you are part of this, and that it's there. You're part of this whole, and that's what I say. My wholeness is because I know I'm part of the wholeness. And I just want to go back when I first met was then not my husband, but when I met this man, I felt like I had come home. And I think it's not often people get to experience that. It was something me totally said, this is the person to be with. So you lose that sense of home when you lose this person. And then to find that again, I feel very, very fortunate and blessed that I have found it in nature. And maybe other people find it in other things, in creative endeavors, or in another. Some people find it in another loved one. It doesn't mean it's only one time that you can experience that, but that sense of home, being comfortable with whoever you are, feeling accepted, and of course, nature doesn't talk back or doesn't criticize you, but nature is definitely, there are consequences if you don't listen to nature. So there's a different way that nature talks to you, because it can be dangerous if you don't listen. So
Yeah, it's being aware of your surroundings always.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
with your hiking, and as long as you go on your hikes overnight, you bring like tent, camping equipment, shelter when you hike multiple
yeah.
days.
That's another aspect of it, is everything you need you carry on your back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I go out for 5 weeks, the only thing that I will have to do is to stop off in places where I can pick up food, or what we call resupplies and things that you will need. But the sense of being complete, um, it goes back to, I think, some nomadic or maybe even hunter-gatherer times. It's in our DNA to just wander the earth and have the earth as your partner or your connection. And I'm not a hunter, so I carry my food and my comforts with me. And the more comforts you need, the more you have to carry. So it's a constant negotiation of, can I do without this? And living in a world of that aspires for everyone to be so comfortable, which doesn't happen. It's a really refreshing, like I call it a reboot every year. When I would go for a while, it's like, okay, I start to appreciate when I come back, um, turning on the tap and having drinkable water, because on the trail you have to find your water and you have to purify it, and it's a whole process. So water becomes this sort of holy thing. It's like, whoa, what would I do if I didn't have this? And some water sources are absolutely gorgeous, and others are not so wonderful, and they can affect your health. So you start to appreciate the basics, air and water. We can't do without them. We don't survive. So there's a lot of deep lessons in doing long distance hiking. Yeah.
I mean, I've been backpacking when I was young,
Uh-huh.
up in Yosemite of all places. That was
Oh, wonderful.
phenomenal. When you're on the trail like that, um, do you have any issues with running into wild animals?
Um, well, I see them. Yeah, they're there. It's their place. And I have never been in danger of wild animals. Almost every year I would see a bear or two
Hmm.
in the distance. They usually, as most people say, they shy away from people, so they run the opposite direction. Sometimes I saw them crossing a trail or climbing a tree, and I know what to do. I don't go right up to them. I wait until they've passed on, and then I continue on the trail. I've only once I saw a mountain lion, which you don't get to see very often because They don't come out during the day when you're hiking under normal circumstance. But that wasn't a normal circumstance. I think I describe it in the book too. I was actually out walking a fire, a big forest fire that had started,
Mm.
and I passed the source, and it just kept going, and that fire just really spread very fast, and so the animal was probably 30 feet ahead of me on the trail, and I went, "What is this? This big brown with a long tail bounding," and then it dove off into the underbrush to the right of the trail. I said, "That was a full-grown mountain lion." It was amazing. Also, that mountain lion, because I was hiking towards a big river to get away from, to be safe if the fire just kept spreading. And lions, the animals do the same thing. They go find the water
Hmm.
um, so that they can survive. Of course, many birds I've seen. Um, I remember one afternoon in Northern California, um, all of a sudden there's this golden eagle that flies from one tree to another. I've never had them so close, with huge wings and just flapping out, and your heart just sort of stops for a moment. It's like, yeah, I think that's a gift that nature gives you. Like, whoa,
Yeah,
beautiful
mountain
thing.
lions are the I live around I've lived around bears for decades, and I'm usually they don't bother me. Although I did where I lived once, there was a mother. She was the biggest bear I've ever seen in my life with
Oh,
5 cubs, which was
oh my goodness,
unusual.
yes, yeah. You want to be very careful when
And
it comes
yeah,
to.
I made sure I kept my distance. But mountain lions are the only ones that I'm really leery of because they could usually avoid humans, but growing up in Los Angeles, I remember back
Oh
in the
yeah,
80s, because of the droughts, there were more than a few hikers and joggers up in the Angeles Crest who became lunch.
yes, yes. And I hiked the Angeles Crest, and no, I didn't see him, and I was always going. That just I don't want that to happen, and not that I have control over it, and it didn't happen, But
Mhm.
there is the risk is there. You're aware of it, but as we always say, you take more risk getting in your car and driving the freeway than, taking to the trail. The
Yes.
chances of that happening are so minimal, and so that didn't stop me. People don't think, should I really drive? I could get killed in a car accident. Well, uh,
Well,
you keep
especially with some of
doing
the
it.
intersections around where I live here in New Jersey, it's like, yeah, you take your life in your hands just going to the store. Um, with going on your spiritual journey, I mean, I like you about the same age as when I like woke up
Mm.
and started pulling away from Christian values and
Mm.
doing a lot of searching, which took me years to get where I'm at now, and I'm still learning.
Yes.
We're always going to be learning. There's always
Yes. Yes.
new things. So, talk a little bit about your spiritual journey since you visited so many countries, continents, and met teachers.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, you know, they, I think later I became a psychologist. So what happened when I was about 19, and that happens to people sometimes, is an existential crisis. You know, you, I had just started college, and you have so many questions. I was taking philosophy classes, um, Nietzsche's God is dead, and those kind of things. I studied and I thought about, and I I entered a period of depression. I had to figure out, is this all really worth it? And there was an event that happened one day. I was laying in my small room in my parents' house because I had taken a sabbatical from university. And I was looking outside, and it was one of those dreary, dreary January days with icicles hanging off the roof. And then the sun broke out, and it shone through the icicles, onto the red tiled roof across. And I thought, this is so beautiful. Sometimes you just see something very beautiful, and it wasn't anything really special in terms of a sunset or this or that. And I thought, if there's beauty, as if somebody told me that, but the thought came, if there's beauty, there must be a reason for all this. Okay, and it was like, I'm going to find out what that reason is. And that started really my journey. I started reading voraciously. I switched majors. I was studying language and literature, and in Holland, where I was living then and going to school, you studied medieval literature. So I was reading, books or scriptures written by saints. I learned that some people would get themselves locked into in a monastery for years and really found out what God was about. Whoa, so that's where the journey started. And then a couple of years later, I had a friend who had gone to India, and I was almost done with my studies, and I wasn't ready to just sort of enter the workforce. And I said to my then boyfriend, I said, let's go to India. Let's go visit William. And I thought, there's a lot going on there in those eastern countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that set us on that journey, overland. Those were the hippie days with a backpack and traveling thumb and hitchhiking and trains and buses and stuff. And we ended up, and we had enough money to stay away for a year. So we just moved around in those countries, and that's where I met eventually what became my guru. But I met all kinds of teachers, and some that were so repulsive to me, all these Westerners, groupies hanging around, waiting for some kind of miracle. I wasn't that kind of person. I didn't do that. But that really got me firmly set on the path of, there is something else, and I have to practice to find it.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back with a meditation practice, which I must say I didn't always do. That was a real off and on for many years, but I always came back to it. So I knew that was my kind of practice that I was doing. And I had this funny man, the old man in the blanket, as a guru who passed away the year after I came back from India. So I never got to go back and hang out with him and do all the wonderful things or experience all the things like Ram Dass experienced, So I was there with them. But for me, my work was much more internal and away from, ashrams and places like that. I didn't go there. I studied yoga because, like I said, I'm kinetic, so that seemed to really help me. I would say now, it calmed down my nervous system. It's a good thing to do, to not just for health, but also for your mental health. So I did that for years, and I kept it in my life. But and a meditation practice is also something that will open up other worlds, and it has done that for me. So I didn't veer off in all kinds of different sorts of practices. I mean, I sat Zen once. I did, I checked out Tibetan Buddhism, but no, the Vipassana meditation was just my path. And in my second book, I do write about this whole quest that I had, that feeling of there's more to this, and I want to find out what it is. And little by little, that has come to me. And as you say, I now live in what we sort of think is a spiritual center in Taos, New Mexico. There's a lot of different temples and different Buddhist practitioners, and I have found that I can actually move deeper into my practice. I found people around me who are doing the same. It's
Hmm.
not. So that's important to me, and I think for the rest of my life, that is the most important thing. It's like, how can I move myself along in my practice towards what they call enlightenment, but deep insight and understanding of how it all hangs together. So I'm not just waiting for death. It's just I'm practicing until I move on.
Till it comes along.
Yes, yes.
Let me ask you what's going to sound like a stupid question, but just from your point of view, you hear the term guru. People, the Beatles had their gurus. People talk
Yes.
about their gurus. What would be your definition of a guru? Is it besides just a teacher? Is it like a specific teacher you're following, or what? I mean, how would you define that?
Well, I make a difference between a guru and a teacher. So a teacher is something you seek out and you follow their methods, their teachings. A guru is someone who has a unexplicable, unexplicable relationship to you um, on the spiritual plane. They know you before you even know them. And when you meet them, and that was so surprising. When you meet them, they will do whatever is in their powers, CDs, or whatever their, progress is on the path. They will open up that world for you, and it's like a gift. My book is called Body and Grace. I mean, that is definitely meeting a guru is a grace. It's not everybody gets that in this life, and I don't know why, if it's past karma or whatever. And I was very resistant to to even go to this person, and I had to be dragged there. And again, um, of all places, my daughter moved to Taos, and in Taos here is a temple that's dedicated to my guru, of
Really?
all the places in the U.S. And I wouldn't have come here unless my daughter was here. So I now am definitely accepting the fact that Maharaji works in mysterious ways. And no matter how much I resist, somehow he finds me again, or I get a message, or my life turns in a direction that brings me closer to actually the guru you serve, a teacher you follow. So if that makes any sense. So I had this experience in the ashram with him that was an empowerment, you could say, an experience of how it all fits together. And I was not on drugs or anything. And that was a one-time experience. But I've always known that my practice is getting towards that understanding, on my own forces. That was by his grace, but that exists. So I also have a meditation teacher who I love very much. He's also passed away, but I never had that kind of relationship with him. I learned the practice that I needed from him. So I hope that explains it a little bit.
Uh, just to clarify something you said, do you feel that your guru is, even though he's passed on, still working with you?
Absolutely. Yep. So now that I'm here, there's this temple. I go there once a week, and I do what they call sevak in India. I do service. I work in the kitchen, and I help prepare meals that we serve freely to whoever comes. But I go sit in. There's a special room dedicated to him, and I just go sit in there, and the energy is very different um, than in other parts of the temple. I can feel it, and if I have a problem, I go in there and I ask, and I get answers. But I didn't just go to the temple because it was here. I mean, I was doing a retreat, and he showed up in physical form. Yes, and he had those cities already. When he was in the body, still he could be in two places at once. He was clairvoyant. He knew where I had come from without anybody telling him. So that's not my goal, to have those kind of powers, but he had developed those, and that's how he sort of manages from a distance, all his devotees, or all the people who are drawn to his very simple message of love, serve, and remember. I got to experience a kind of love that is so all-encompassing when I was with him that I have to say, at times, my husband and I, we would get there together like that, but it is and that comes through at times when I'm sitting near. They have a special place for him. If I sit there, I can feel it, and I'm not making it up. There are definitely unexplainable phenomena that I have just learned to accept, and I'm a very rational person. I'm going, I don't know how this is all working, but it's here, and I cannot deny it. And so I kind of let that guide me. Yeah.
I am fascinated the thought that after he passed, he was still able to appear to you. I mean, did he look totally physical, or was it? I mean, how would you
Not so
describe
much
it?
anymore. Now it's like an orb, like an energy,
Okay,
and it
all
has
right.
a color, and it would, to me, I would see it as a love energy.
Mhm.
But when he just passed away, which I didn't know, I was in a yoga retreat, and there was someone was speaking in the front of the audience, and all of a sudden I look, the person changed, looked just like my guru,
Hmm.
sitting there. I went, whoa, what just happened? And 2 days later, I found out that he had left his body at that time. And so other people also got to see him. He showed up for his students in different places. He had still a grip on physical energy, which that I think is faded. It's been 50 years. I haven't heard from anybody that he still shows up like that, which he would do when he had a body. He would do that. He would show up. Or he would show up in dreams. He doesn't come like that in dreams to me anymore either. Yeah.
But when he was alive, it was a type of bilocation, being in
Yes,
two
yes,
places at
yeah,
once.
yeah. And many people have talked about that. There's all kinds of stories about that were with him. Yeah, I'm not the only one. So,
I have a friend of mine in the UK named Irene. She's actually a very, very strong psychic medium. She's had a lot of experiences, and
yeah.
people have told her at times, I think this happened a couple times in their life where they swear they saw her somewhere. And she goes,
Mm.
no, I was home or they saw her in two, she was in two places at once, but she has no memory of it. It's just that
Right,
people
right,
saw
right.
her.
Yeah, so these, you know, Um, I did some studying of psychic phenomena for a while in the 70s and stuff until I started having children, but because it's not a good thing to do. You're working with really fine energies, and it affects your body.
Mhm.
And so, if you're going to be a mother, you better be grounded and earthy and stuff like that. So that's when I stopped. But I would know things before um, I would meet a person, or I would see around a person, and I could see auras and would know several people, know that they would die, were going to die. I didn't like knowing that,
Mhm.
and then it would come true. So um, I would say maybe in my life I have a intuitive gift, and you can develop that, or you can just kind of leave it where it is. Um, I've developed it to some degree, but it's not something that I would practice. And tell people things that I could see. But it's come up in my life that I can see other dimensions at certain time. I can see through this dimension into other dimensions of time. And when I meditate, in seclusion, no speaking, no other influences, that's when that ability gets stronger too. Yeah.
Would you say that before your journey or, starting to learn on your spiritual journey that you had experiences or had these gifts when you were younger, growing up?
I don't remember, not when I was younger. Some people have that when they're younger, but I didn't. For me, there was this, like, I was just a very ordinary, happy child, and then there was this big, like, break in my consciousness that happened
Mhm.
at 19, and I don't know why that happened, but that's when these sensitivities would start coming up as well. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I've had some experiences since childhood. Um, a very an out of body experience once, hearing my name being called.
Yeah.
Nothing so earth shattering, really, but even all these years, every once in a while something happens, and I can be intuitive. I get sometimes what I'll refer to as downloads.
Yeah.
Um, just I'll just suddenly start to feel information.
Yep.
Especially if I do readings on the side for people, and especially during those times, you start to feel the information coming through.
Right.
And energy is everything. We're all energy. Everything around us is energy.
Yeah.
You're talking about being able to see into the other dimensions. It's kind of why I named this program like it is, Transdimensional Realities, because
Yeah.
so many people don't realize that what we think of as reality is a very narrow viewpoint,
Yes.
like the light spectrum. We see this sliver of the light spectrum, and in reality, it goes all the way out
Right.
in
Right.
both
Yeah. That's a
directions.
good comparison because people can understand that because they can actually show it, through physics and stuff that the others exist. The other colors do exist, even though you can't see it, or the other. Um, and yeah, we just have a limited capacity in our brain, and for some, and all our brains are different. So for some people, that comes through um, easily or not so easily. Often it has to do with a crisis in their life or a severe illness that brings that about. And it's not always something you wish for. I don't wish to know that a friend of mine is going to die and then dies 2 years later.
Mm.
Um, um, but when those qualities are there, you have a responsibility on how you're going to deal with them and how you use them. So, like you said, these downloads, I heed them. I listen to them when I get them. When I was on top of Forester Pass, which is over 13,000 feet, there was this voice that said, if you want to go to Tibet, you need to go now. I wasn't in Tibet. I wasn't thinking about Tibet. But
Wow.
in the past, when I was in Nepal, we were in Nepal during that year and had gone to Everest. And, um, we couldn't go into Tibet. But I had met Tibetan refugees and always felt a real kinship with them. They were such authentic people. So when I heard that voice, then the next year I was in Tibet.
Wow. I've
And
heard.
I ended up doing not just go to Everest again on the Chinese side, but I went to Mount Kailas, which is the holy mountain
Mhm.
in Tibet, that where all the three main rivers come from, and different religions do their pilgrimages. And if they say that if you circumambulate Mount Kailas, your life is not just completion, but it's like a fork in the road. Your life really changes. And I sat in Milarepa's cave, that was 2/3 around the mountain, the cave that they've maintained there near a monastery, is attributed to him. He was, I think, around 700 or 1000 AD. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was a very famous Tibetan yogi and wrote in the 70s, the book The Love Songs of Milarepa was a popular book, and I had read that.
Okay.
And so, and he in that book, he was not just some scholar; he was just a human being who talked about universal love, and it spoke to me then. So I sat in this cave and I realized that probably in some lifetime or in some other energy, I was part of Tibetan Buddhist teachings, possibly even Milarepa, because it just all felt so familiar. And it's come back into my life in other ways. But I am not a practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism. So, but Milarepa was kind of a renegade too in Tibetan Buddhism. He did his own practice, and that is what speaks to me. I mean, I've done a lot of self-retreats. I do a lot of, it's like, no, I don't need anybody to tell me what I need to do here. I'm going to do it my way. And I trust that more and more as I'm farther along on the path. And so it was good to I was touching base with a point in the dimensions that has been important in my awareness before. So then after that, the next year, unrelated, I made the decision to move from where I had been living for 35 years and came here to this totally wild place here in the U.S. I'll tell you, it's pretty wild here.
I used to have family in Albuquerque, but I've never been to Taos.
Yeah, Taos is a sort of the Dalai Lama talks about it. It's halfway around the world from Tibet. There's a vortex they talk about here, and you can sort of feel it. Don't mess around here. You either accept it or you can't make it here.
Right, right. I mean, I grew up in LA, familiar with the desert, but I've always been drawn to the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, the Four Corners area.
So beautiful place.
And I haven't been there in decades. I'm surprised I'm here in New Jersey. I never planned to come out here, and 25 years ago, here I am, and I'm in a position where I would like to move and more out that way. I'm just I don't know what I'm waiting for. I'm just kind of looking for some opportunities to present themselves.
Right.
So, but yeah, I feel a very strong pull and energy towards that area because, like, you talked about the vortices and around Sedona area, which has become more of a tourist trap than anything, I think, these days.
Yeah,
but there's still the energies there.
Yeah, I did 2 summers ago. My hiking buddies from Holland came to see where I lived, and we drove around the whole Southwest in a Sprinter van, camped wherever we wanted to. And on the Navajo, and we avoided the touristy areas. Mm-hmm. On the Navajo reservation, there was, what they talk about sometimes, beings appear and disappear. The Indians talk about that. Mm-hmm. Well, this guy, I didn't know where he came from. Well, it was possible that he came from this, we could see another sort of dwelling in the distance. And he showed up with artwork that he had done. And we talked to him for a while and offered him some tea. And then he was on his way. And then he disappeared. And this is such open land that it's like, okay, he's on foot. So if we start driving, we will see him. There's only one road. Where did he go? And it was one of those experiences and say, well, I could just say, nothing happened here. But there was another energy there, and I could feel it in Navajo country. And yeah, the these rugged places. Again, it's wilderness that will teach you there's a lot more to it than what we think in our little rational brains.
Our rational Western brains, and
Brains.
that's part of the
Yeah.
problem.
Yep.
And you said
Yep.
something about your guru that I like is the fact that you and him aren't weighed down by dogma. That
Right.
following certain practices over and over again, like so many of the religions, you have to do this, you have to do that. When there are so many different paths to source, as I call it,
That's a
it,
good word for it. Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
yeah, people, and you need to follow your instincts, and it may go completely against what other people are doing. Even people who are really on their path and are experiencing things and growing doesn't necessarily mean that's your path.
Right.
You
Right.
you have your own energy, your own signature, you have your own life path to follow, and it could be totally different, but you know what? You're going to get there
Hmm. If you stay on that path, you're
if you
going
stay
to
on the
get
path. Yes.
there.
Everybody eventually gets there. Some take longer than others until we figure it out.
Yes. Yes. Uh,
Well, it's fascinating. I was going to ask you something here, and now I forgot it. Uh,
okay.
so with your book, it came out in March, and where can people find it?
Oh, actually, it came out in April, but
Oh,
yeah, all
April.
the major outlets, Barnes and Nobles and Amazon, and if you ask bookstores, they can stock it if they want to. It's a niche book, you know. Not everybody wants to read about tromping around in the wilderness and what that's like, and some people have a lot of interest. So I combine it with oh, they can also get it via my website, but most people don't want to bother doing that. But that's,
Well, what's your website?
it's transformation-travel.com.
There you go. Okay.
And you know, as you can see, I mean, my travels are not about sightseeing. Have always been about changing myself internally. So I post things there that have to do with that, with journeys that um, make a change in my life. So
Hmm.
they can find um, my YouTube channel where like I make slideshows or YouTubes of places I've been, like around Kailas and stuff, and it it may open up something in people and say, I want to go there or I want to do that. But you know, the message is um, travel can transform you in a way that is not always easy or comfortable,
Hmm.
but helps you go, as you said, towards the source of what your life is all about. You know, so listen. Don't just go because everybody else. People always ask me, "Have you hiked the Camino?" I said, "Oh, everybody else is hiking the Camino. I don't think I need to do that one." Besides, there are many Caminos if you really want to know it. You know, I go to the places that have some spiritual messages for me. Like I did a hike around Cornwall, which is a spiritual pilgrimage that you can follow. You follow all these churches, and you know, and I really got to look at the lives of saints and people who came there, you know, a long, long time ago, and what they left behind, and what was the quality of them. So that was my whole, you know, it's like, did they come here to make everybody Christian? No. They came there to help and to serve and to be there for people. And then, if they wanted to know about God, they taught them about God. So that was sort of a really neat exploration that I did one summer. And again, there I got messages that I went, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to this one. So that's what I call transformation travel. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Dami, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
really pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it sounds like we're kindred souls.
Oh yeah. You don't know the half of it. I try
I'm,
not to
I'm,
talk too much.
I may, yes, I may do it in a different form, but we're all people who are looking to find ultimately love and connection, and my guru always says, love, serve, and remember. Just do things that are good for people, and you'll find that kind of connectedness in the world that is there. So, thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
That was our guest, Dami Roelse, uh, author of Body and Grace, a woman's hike to wholeness on this Pacific Crest Trail. And it was funny. We talked a little bit after the show, after the interview, and she's not used to coming on a show like this. Mostly she talks about hiking, but she was really fascinated and happy to talk about all the other experiences she's had, which I found riveting and very, very interesting. So thank you, Dami, for coming on. Dami, I keep saying it wrong. My bad. So anyway, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Transdimensional Realities here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And until next week, we'll have a new guest and we will see you all soon. So be good humans. We'll talk to you then.